Welcome, tovarzyszy, to Park Pobedy, Victory Park. So, welcome to Victory Park. Now, I think I've approached this place from the back, so I haven't necessarily got the best entrance, but behind me, which I thought was really interesting, is a monument to the First World War. Now, usually when we talk about victory in the Russian context, it's almost exclusively the Great Patriotic War. So yeah, we've got, I'll turn it around so we can get some better sound. There's a guy on a plinth there as well, but I'll read out what it says for you. Geroyam Первой Mirovой Войны, the heroes of the First World War. Interesting, I suppose. In the Soviet period, it was seen as the First World War was purely an imperialist war. I'm not sure about the memorialization of the First World War there. It would have been much more the Civil War, that kind of thing. But yeah, we've got a monument to the First World War. Interesting little bit of trivia. Didn't think they'd have one. But let's go have a look at the main attraction of the place. So as you can see, the avenue stretches on for quite a long time. Now I actually arrived from that end and came up towards this obelisk, which I'll show you in a moment. We've got fountains on one side, and then each of those pillars with the sort of the bronze banners on is for a different front or for a different fleet. Most of them are fronts because obviously the war was mostly land-based. The fleets played their role, but it wasn't, the Navy didn't play a huge role in the Great Patriotic War. But so you'll have, the first Belarusian front, the second Belarusian front, the third, and you'll have a little picture of the people, like sort of images of Soviet soldiers fighting and stuff. And then you'll have the name of the commander of that front. So you've got Rosakovsky for some, you've got Zhukov for some of them, although he was sort of overall commander really, I think. And yeah, and then as you go further down, you've got stuff like the munitions workers and the partisans and all the rest. But yeah, this is really cool. And I noticed there's a church to the war. You can't quite see it here, but written above, just around the cupola, is stuff about the Great Patriotic War and everything. I wonder how recent that is of an addition. Obviously, the church and the Soviet state had an uneasy relationship, to say the least. But yeah, so this is what you see when you first arrive from that end of Victory Park. Then you come back, you head up these stairs, and apologies for the glare. Then we have this truly monumental obelisk. So let's go have a closer look. Okay, so I tried to get a better shot here with less glare. So you can see it's sort of an avenging angel type, cutting off the head of the fascist beast. I don't know if you can see it. Look a bit closer. Got swastikas and stuff everywhere. And then on the actual obelisk itself, we have images of soldiers going into battle. And I don't know if you can see it there, but as you go up the obelisk, you have images of various battles and the names of various towns. So you've got Murmansk, and you've got Kerch and Kiev and Minsk, all the big ones like Moscow, Leningrad, all that kind of thing. And yeah, so it's just, this is what you see when you come from that end. It's truly huge. Now, I don't know if it's going to be that clear, but then we've got sort of an angel of victory up there with the cherubs with horns and all the rest. And yeah, it's just a really cool, really, as I said, quite monumental tribute to the guys who died, to the 27 million who died. So yeah, let's keep having a look. I can't really communicate just how massive this place is. It is truly huge. It took me a couple minutes to walk up this far away. So over here we have the Great Patriotic War Museum. Now I'm not sure I'll go inside today. I'm actually feeling quite hungry and I got a couple of things to do at home, but that's just, as I said, anything to do with the war here, absolutely massive, titanic, much like the war itself. So there we go, and that's the museum there. And then if you can hear, probably can't, there's some fountains and things over here as well. Slightly clearer shot of the church. Now I do think it's a modern implementation given the way that those windows look. And yeah, it would be slightly odd to have a church on a Soviet era war monument. And yeah, it's just a really pretty area of town. It's a really pretty park. I mean, you'd expect that from a country where, as I've said, the war and the memory of the war is sacred. So you've got the church there, we've got Moscow City, and then we have the obelisk to victory. So, kind of a trinity of modern Russia: church, modern wealth, and a legacy, the long shadow of the Great Patriotic War. So, let's have a look over here. Then we come over here, and there's more places to sit and to stroll that aren't cobbled, so it's a bit easier to walk. We've got fountains, and we've got kiosks. You can buy, funnily enough, you can buy hot dogs, which seems a bit weird. It's you know, the symbol of American consumerism in many people's eyes, hot dogs. And that is the museum. And let's see what's on the other side of the facade. But I've been making an effort to walk on these smoother bits because I keep scuffing my shoes on these cobbles. It's all very cool and all very atmospheric, you know, all the rest. But yeah, I just don't want to scuff my shoes any more than they already are. Can't really see, but anyway. Dandy to the end, even when paying tribute to the heroes of the Great Patriotic War. You would notice when I was showing you the obelisk earlier, the whole bunch, like the mountain of flowers that are there. That's pretty normal, from what I understand, to have that much of a I don't know, I guess, decoration on the monument. Because like I said in my other videos, it's very much still a real thing here. Well, real, but also mystified in its own way. It is, in many ways, at the foundational myth of modern Russia, this sort of moment where we all came together and we defeated the ultimate evil, that kind of thing. And there's an element of truth to that. You know, I would not deny that, as I've said many times. Nazism was the greatest evil of the 20th century. But yeah, no, it's just interesting that it's still such a real thing here. Such a real thing. I suppose, you know, you don't get over losing 27 million people in 6 years like that, you know. It's, as I said, it's still in living memory for some people, for some older people. But yeah, so let's head on over to the other side of the facade for the museum and have a look what's there. The camera doesn't really capture the sheer size of the place. It is huge. And you feel pretty small, it feel pretty tiny. But then that's sort of part of the course, as I said, for Great Patriotic War memorials and that kind of thing, in areas of reverence, at least in this city. But yeah, here we go. Let's head on to the other side, see what it looks like. Okay, so it looks like the museum goes a good deal further back than I initially anticipated. And yeah, that's sort of appropriate. So yeah, let's just keep looking. On the other side, with the great big museum that goes all the way back. And then, we have this rather nice boulevard. Obviously, way more trees, that kind of thing. They're big for having sort of forested areas in the city here. I suppose with Gorky Park and the forest near there as well. So, let's go down and see what's in those trees over there. Then I might go back and let's have a look at that avenue again with all of those pillars. So, yeah. Park Pobedy. Pretty impressive so far. And you can sort of see what they were going for. You feel absolutely tiny walking around here. You know, this sort of Soviet-era architecture. I don't know when this place is built. I would assume fairly soon after the war. But, you know, there we go. Massive. Like everything in this country. They don't do things by half measures here. Let's head over into those trees over there. Channel my inner Soviet partisan. Have a look around. Yeah, as I said, there are a lot of forested areas throughout the city. Well, I say lots. There's here, and then there's Gorky Park, which, you know, you would have seen isn't like much more densely forested than any other public park, but just beyond it is a huge forest that stretches along the River Moscow for a while, or rather the Moscow River. So here we go. Just 1941. Let's see how things go. I know I show you a lot of forests, but it seems sort of appropriate here. For instance, I mentioned the Belarusian front. Belarus is one of the most heavily... Belarus and I think the Baltic republics are some of the most heavily forested countries in the world. So this would have been a pretty common sight on the Eastern Front. You can imagine Uncle Joe walking around here if he ever came out to this side of town, walking through the trees, or you can imagine a couple hundred miles away, well, a couple thousand maybe, hundreds of miles away, however far, partisans hiding in the bushes, preparing to take out a German patrol and save the motherland, as they say here. Yeah, pretty cool. Soviet red squirrel, how appropriate. Oh, where you going, buddy? Red squirrel in by the Great Patriotic War. Up he goes. Look after yourself, buddy. There's not many of you guys left, especially the grey ones now. Oh, and here we go, here's another memorial. Let's have a look. So we have a more recent monument here. I'll go out on the other side and show you the facade in a minute. But what we've got written here, we've got V Борьбе против фашизма мы были вместе, which means in the fight against fascism, we were together. So yeah, then you've got a whole series of panels of various scenes of the war. I'm not seeing much in the way of sort of that marriage, as I've mentioned before, that marriage between nostalgia for the Tsar's time and nostalgia for the glory of the Second World War. So yeah, here we go. But the main article of the place is really cool, and I'll show you in a moment. It's, just to give you a hint, lads with big old machine guns. We've got the Statue of Victory. I think that one's in Ukraine. It's quite a famous one. It's absolutely massive. So yeah, more scenes of various monuments and moments in battle. But yeah, let's have a look at the main focus of the memorial now. We'll start on this side, and this is a memorial. This is a bronze cast of the Victory Parade on June 22nd, 1945. Which was exactly 4 years to the day from when the Nazis invaded the USSR. And as you can see, you've got rays of light coming down. It was raining that day when you see the footage, and here you go. You know, you've got the stern-faced, proud men of the Red Army, and the banners of their defeated enemies just on the ground. The stuff I saw at the Armed Forces Museum yesterday. So here we go. That's just one side. Now, I'm not sure the significance of this pillar here, but it's got loads of names of different cities, like Kiev and Minsk. You know, all the usual ones. And then we have on the side the fall of the Reichstag. You know, where they raised the flag of victory, the Flag Pobedy. You know, I've got all the German hardware there, and then you've got them there, as they did in that footage. You know, firing into the air, celebrating. So there we go. Celebrating the defeat of fascism, and then we've got, you know, the old dome of the Reichstag. And let's have a look at the main piece. So here's from one side. There we go. Very imposing, very cool, but I'll get a better shot from over there. There we go. We've got them raising the flag, obviously a bit of a stylized image of it. As I said in my Berlin videos, they had to raise the flag 2 or 3 times. The one that I saw in the Central Museum yesterday was the one that they raised on May Day, and then that, you know, when they had to take the rest of the building, they wanted to make sure to have it up by May Day, you know, International Labor Day. But yeah, we've got the heroes of the Soviet Union planting the flag on top of the Nazi Partei Adli, the party eagle. Yeah, and here they are, defeating them. Eagle underfoot. Just a monument to victory. Very, very cool. And like I said, they don't mess around. It's pretty big. So yeah, there we go. That is one of the memorials in Victory Park. Shadow of victory, and the shadow of the men raising the hammer and sickle over the Reichstag. It's very nice. Really nice here. Keep looking around. Came out of this forest here. Just popped out where those two guys are sitting. And there's the obelisk again in the back of the museum. Let's see what's happening over here. Hear lots of music. Yeah, so walk along through the trees near some tanks, feel like Stalin in Kuncevo. This big old self-propelled gun. Let's keep going. Soviet train. I think if I can get it in the right direction, right position, I think it says something along the lines of, it says, if I can get it, something like forwards to victory, that kind of thing. So yeah, probably the sort of thing that Stalin was barreling around on when he was going around the front, although he didn't do that terribly often, to my understanding. He was still in Moscow, trying to run the whole country. So yeah, there we go. Somebody's train, clearly. Don't know whose. It's pretty cool though. A Soviet wartime train. There we go. Let's continue walking through the woods. Channeling our inner Stalin at Kuncevo, or maybe down at his Sochi dacha. So let's keep having a look. So that area was just another sort of, not quite graveyard, but another little display of Soviet military gear from the war. And it looks like they've got a whole bunch of German stuff as well. I don't know if it's real, maybe it's just been restored, or it's just something that looks similar, like a sort of mock-up. But yeah, as I said in my other video, I think I'm a bit Red Armied out at the moment. So I think I'll just enjoy the rest of the park, and then I'll come back another day and do the museums, because I definitely do need to do the museums, of course. Can't come to Moscow and not do the Great Patriotic War Museum. I'd like to see how it is, how it engages with the scholarship, that kind of thing. How it compares to sort of war stuff in Germany, obviously beyond just you know, we won, the Germans lost, that kind of thing. So yeah, I'll keep on looking, and yeah, I'll get in touch if I see anything interesting. So one thing I noticed is there was a Fanta rep here. So people are walking around with cans of Fanta, which is funny, a bit strange on many levels. The first being that a Fanta, if you don't know your history of your soft drinks, which I wouldn't expect you to, Fanta was invented by the German division of Coca-Cola during the war, because the German division of Coca-Cola obviously couldn't get the ingredients for regular Coca-Cola. So they decided to just throw together everything they had and called it Fanta, which is close to the German word for imagination. So it's just funny that people are drinking what I like to call Nazi Coke at a museum and a memorial to victory in the Great Patriotic War. Just funny, yeah. Just a funny twist of fate, twist of history. That, and you know, the old refrain of it's a bit odd to see images of consumer capitalism being consumed on the grounds that used to memorialize people who died fighting for socialism, or at least, you know, this stated intention was fighting for socialism and defeating fascism, that kind of thing. But yeah, there you go, just a funny little thing about Victory Park today. I'm having a closer look at the church, which I discovered is called the Church of St. George the Victorious or something like that, and I think it is a modern edition with the way that glass looks. I wouldn't at all be surprised. But yeah, so the church is sort of a victory church. There we go. So you've got the church there, looking towards the obelisk there. And then we've got our kiosks for hamburgers and things. So there you go. Interesting. So there we go. Slightly better view of the memorial. Like, you can't see the finer details. It's a bit too dark. But yeah, that's the obelisk in the center there. And then you've got the pillars to all the different fronts and fleets that I told you about. We've got our kiosks as well. And yeah, so this is Victory Park. It's quite nice actually. It's not bombastic, it's not over the top, it's actually quite understated. Well, as understated as an obelisk that big can be, you know, but it's not crass at all. It's I guess it's like any of the great military memorials of the world. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of some examples. I don't know. It just doesn't feel over the top at all. It just feels like, you know, a nice, pleasant public area to memorialize an incredibly traumatic period in the world's history. So yeah, there you go. Victory Park. Every couple of hundred meters, got these little plinths each year of the war. So obviously 44, 45, and then all the way down to 41, down there towards the arch. Actually, let's go have a look at that arch. But first, I'm gonna get some food. I saw back here a place called the USSR Buffet. So I might go there and get a burger or something and a beer. See what it's like. So I'm here with my beer and my wrap. I'm served by a lovely guy from Tajikistan called Aziz. He said I spoke Russian very well, which is always nice to hear. And yeah, let's get stuck in. So something's just occurred to me that I thought I'd tell you guys about. I've met a lot of people from Central Asian republics who speak absolutely impeccable English. I had an Uzbek taxi driver yesterday, and he spoke English without a trace of an accent. It was insane. It sounded like he wasn't from Uzbekistan. He sounded like he was from even Australia, maybe. Like, his English was perfect. And where I just had my beer and sort of a wrap kind of thing, lovely man called Aziz from Tajikistan. He spoke English perfectly, absolutely perfectly, and it's just interesting to see. You know, well, I suppose they understand that, you know, it's a marketable skill, because nowhere else in the world speaks to Tajik or Uzbek, you know. So there you go. But yeah, it's just it's interesting and both frustrating to see, because, you know, these, again, as I've said before, these people work so hard to speak fantastic English, and we in the Anglophone world rarely, if ever, learn foreign languages. But, you know, those are the breaks. So, but yeah, there you are. Uzbeks and Tajiks and people from Central Asian republics, the ones I've met, speak impeccable English. There you go. As you can see, truly Titanic. And we've got the names of some of the big battles. Leningrad, Moscow. You can't see it from this angle, I'm too close, but right at the top you've got Berlin, of course. But yeah, we've got these guys in bronze or whatever. Brest, one of the bigger battles early on. And yeah, they do not muck about when they do memorials in this country. Not to this. Yeah, here we go. Murmansk, Sevastopol. Oh, and that's the church going off. Minsk, Kiev, Leningrad, Moscow. And yeah, of course I can't show you the top of it, I'm too close, and if I go any further away you can't see it. But you've got Berlin right at the top in 1945. And I was wrong. I think the guy on the horse is actually not some sort of avenging angel, but St. George the Victorious. It's the saint that this church is made in honor of. So yeah, there you go. They do not mess around when they memorialize this war. Such a huge event, such a huge part of their psyche still. So yeah, there you go. Park Pobedy, Victory Park. Pretty cool. I'll definitely be back again to check out the museum. But I'm still a bit hungry and I've got some stuff to eat at home. So let's wrap it up. I'd be very interested to read about the history of this particular monument. I don't know very much about it, but it's interesting that they've sort of, if this does predate the fall of the Soviet Union, which I'm assuming it does, surely something this big would predate the fall of the Soviet Union. It's interesting that they've sort of mixed that sort of Christian imagery with that sort of secular religion of the Second World War, because the guy on the horse, as I may have mentioned, is St. George, and he's slaying the fascist dragon. Well, in this case, the fascist dragon, but, you know, obviously the story is that he slayed just a regular dragon. I don't know what that dragon's politics were. I don't think that's necessarily important. But it's just interesting to see that combination of the two. I mean, there was a degree of return to sort of quote-unquote conservative values under Stalin, at least during the war, sort of as a rallying point for the people. They reintroduced some more sort of Tsarist era practices and behavioural codes into the army during the war. And yeah, they sort of generally relaxed some of the more secularizing and modernistic elements of their brand of socialism. But it's just interesting to see how they managed to square that circle, I suppose, to get those two very disparate identities to work together, you know, the former Tsarist and the socialist. Although, as I said, that's sort of a metaphor for all of Russia now. That's the dueling identity that it's had to work on and work around for the last, definitely the last 30 years, to a lesser extent since the war. But yes, it's interesting. St. George slaying the dragon, but this dragon is the dragon of fascism. So there you go. Just another example of the duality of the Russian character, if you'll let me use such a wanky phrase. But there you go. Park Pobedy. Excuse the breaks in continuity, but I just had something more to say about the park. I guess it doesn't feel like you're at the regular memorials, because it's not really. I'll show you in a sec, but it's really more just a public area, like a public park with a lot of memorials in it. It doesn't really feel, in and of itself, just a memorial. It feels like a public area, which I can kind of get behind, you know? Remembrance through being around memorials, that's fine, but yeah, it's just, I guess I expected, I still like it, I still like the Victory Park. It's a nice park, it's a nice park because it's landscaped well, all that kind of thing, and then when the monuments are good. But yeah, I guess it's not like an Arlington, it's more like just a park that has lots of memorials in it. Still nice though, yeah. So here's an image of what the place is really like. We've got playgrounds over there, and, you know, fairground type stuff. And you've got the First World War Memorial. So that's out burping. There's the First World War Memorial. And then, you know, there's a big sort of big Plощad, a big public square. So it is more of a park than it is a straight up military memorial site. But I think I can get behind it because it makes it a bit more real, it makes it a bit more human in its own way, which I guess is the whole point. Make history human, bring to bear that sort of human cost, and indeed attest to what's good about humanity. We get together and we can enjoy spaces like this together. So, yeah, Victory Park. Not quite a memorial, not quite a park, but somewhere in between. And I think it's a good middle ground. So the dandy is wrapping up in Park Pobedy in Victory Park. And remember, stay dandy.